Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Brazos Valley. My name is Gay Webb, and my pronouns are she and her, and I will be your worship associate today. And carrying on some other parts, since our beloved minister is out on the West Coast doing a concert. So we are here to try to help her out when she's gone. Our short names are UUCBV and Brazos-UU. So if you hear those out in the community or even in this building, you'll know we're talking about the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Brazos Valley. We are a welcoming congregation, which means we celebrate and welcome all people of diverse sexual orientation and gender identities. We also strive to welcome people across diversities of race, age, ability, immigration status, and belief. We are also a congregation working for reproductive justice. So whoever you are and wherever you have come from, wherever you are on your life journey, you are welcome here. We have a couple of announcements this morning, and as a reminder that we are doing our joys and concerns, and our little notebook is that what you have? Okay, Molly has that. So she'll be passing it around during the service, and then at that time of the worship service, I'll be reading notes out loud. And remember that our service is recorded and available publicly if you need to moderate your message accordingly. Our second announcement is a very happy one for me. We have a special guest this morning that will bring our sermon, Sheri Phillabaum, from a long time to you. I'll let her, if she wishes, to tell you a little bit more about herself. She and her husband, Roy, have written a couple of books, and they're children books, and they are available at the back of the sanctuary. So during coffee hour, go out there and look at them for sale for a nominal price, check or cash. If you don't have either, they're also available on Amazon. And the UUA in Spirit publishing brochure or website. Oh, and my computer just turned off. So. Okay. So our service will begin with this call to worship. This is called Embrace the Night by Jennifer Grayson. Universal mystery. Guide us away from the desire to shine light in all the corners. Teach us to embrace the night, for without the darkness, we never see the stars. So now if you will join me in saying our church affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And because we believe as Unitarian Universalists that everyone has a holy spark of the divine in them, let's take a moment to greet that holy spark in each other. Remember to talk to someone you don't really know very well, and people who are younger and older than you. So let's spread it up, and we'll play the music to get you back together.
Dinosaur track. I like that dinosaur. Like a signal. Wow. But I feel like I enjoy eating all of this stuff. They say no.
I think the Joys of Concerns book is still going around, so I'll take this opportunity to tell you something that I forgot. Roy is involved with the Board of Trustees at the URU Summer Retreat, Camping Retreat Center in Kerrville. And it is a subsidiary or associated with the National Universities Association. And the story, one of the books back there is The Legend of the Stag, which is about the experiences at the camp. And it's really beautifully illustrated as well. Okay, where's the book? No, I was saying my concern.
Oh, the only quick
Sorry.
Joys and concerns.
They're right there. Okay. I see somebody else coming in too. Molly has a joy, and I have a joy related to Molly and her joy. Molly says it's such a joy to have her son Eli help with food and coffee this morning, and we are also very happy and joyful that Molly and Eli are providing us with coffee and snacks this morning. Did. Somebody said that it got below 80 this week in the morning. I don't remember that. The Bryan Animal Center is having pet adoptions and a special price on pet adoptions. So if you're looking for a cat, dog, bird, lizard, snake, whatever, see what they might have. And of course, we remember those who have spoken, those who have that have been named, and those that we hold in silence in our hearts. And now, Sheri will present Our Time for All Ages.
So our story this morning is Who Loves the Dark? I won't keep showing the pictures because we have the pictures right up there. There once was a child who got lost in the woods. As day turned to evening and evening turned to night, the child became more and more frightened. You see, this child had always been afraid of the dark. He was more afraid of the dark than any of his friends or his siblings. He didn't know why he was so afraid. He only knew that when the sun went down, he was always glad to be inside his brightly lit home. Now the child saw only the dark shadows of the trees and the only light was from a sliver of the moon and the twinkling stars. The child got so frightened, all he could do was sit down and cry. Suddenly he heard a voice say, "What's all that racket?" He looked down and saw a mole squinting up at him. "I'm lost," he said. "It's dark and I'm afraid." "Well," said the mole, "please take your noisy crying farther down the path. I don't want to come out of my warm, comfortable, dark hole to tell people to be quiet." Then the child heard another voice. "Go on back to your hole, Mr. Mole. I'll take care of this." The child looked up, and in the darkness, he saw two glowing eyes looking down at him. Before he could scream, a flutter of wings he heard as a huge bird flew down near him. "Please excuse Mr. Mole. He hates to come out of his nice dark hole for anything, to be honest." At this, the child burst out crying even harder than before, because as frightened as he was of the dark, having these strange creatures speak to him was even more frightening. "No need for that crying," said the owl. "If you'll just give me your address, I can guide you home." With that, the child did indeed stop crying. He felt better knowing that someone might be able to lead him home. But he wondered how an owl could find his home, even with the address. Choking back his tears, he replied that he would be very grateful to be guided home, and gave the owl his address. So this strange pair headed off through the dark forest, in what the child hoped was truly the direction of his home. When his fear left him just a little bit, the child looked around, and though the moonlight was dim, he could see some things. At one point, he noticed a kind of flower that he had never seen before. He slowed his pace just a little so he could gaze at it. "That," said the owl as they continued walking, "was an evening primrose. Did you know that there are some flowers that bloom only at night? There are moonflowers and night gladiolas too, flowers you would never see if you never went out at night." After a while, the owl said, as if musing aloud to herself, "And of course, there are also animals who love the night and darkness. Me, for example, I love the dark. In the daytime, the light hurts my eyes. So that's when I like to go into my tree and sleep." To this, the boy replied, "Well, I like the daytime. I can see to kick a ball. I like the hot sun at the beach. When the dark isn't scary, it's just boring." "Boring, you say," laughed the owl. She clearly had some opinions on this point, but just then there was a fluttering and squeaking around their heads. The child shrieked, "A bat!" He started flailing his arms to knock the creature away, shrieking the whole time. The shape backed away, hovering just out of reach, and said, "Excuse me, that's just my way of saying hello." "Well, hello to you, Mr. Bat," said the owl. "This child is lost, and I'm helping him find his way home. You're not hurt, are you?" "Well," said the bat, "I'll probably have a bruise on my backside, but I think I'll live." "But you're a bat," said the child, "a creature of darkness. Weren't you trying to drink my blood?" "No," said the bat, "but I've been eating lots of yummy insects that would have been biting you if I hadn't been around. Anyway, I couldn't help hearing what you said about the darkness. So you think it's boring. If you want to come just a little bit out of your way, I can show you something really exciting." So the group went off the path and traveled through the deepest forest until they came out onto a dark beach. "Here we are," said the bat. The child gazed out of the beach, lit very gently by moonlight, and thought, "This certainly is beautiful, even in the dark, but I wouldn't call it exciting." Just then, there was a movement in the sand, like a little bubble of sand rising up. Then there was another little bubble, and then another. It looked beach were boiling. Then, from one of those little bubbles of sand, out popped a rounded shape. "Looks like we got here just in time," said the bat. As they watched, more and more shadowy shapes came up out of the sand, and soon the child realized what he was seeing. Lots of baby turtles, hundreds climbing out of the sand. This was truly exciting. Once each turtle shape pulled itself up out of the sand, it started crawling as fast as its legs could carry it towards the water. "When baby sea turtles hatch," said the owl in a sort of teacherly voice, "they need to find their way to the water. They follow the moonlight and starlight reflecting off the water. To find the water, they need darkness everywhere else, or they might accidentally follow the wrong light." "Oh," said the child. As they turned to leave and head back toward the child's home, the owl spoke again, as if thinking aloud to herself. "You know who else loves the darkness, besides all the nighttime plants and animals? The moon and the stars love the darkness. That's when they can really shine. Oh, they're there in the daytime as well, hidden behind a wall of light. But when that wall goes down with the sun, the stars and the moon reveal their beauty." Soon after the child and the owl left the forest, he saw a familiar street, the street where he lived. He was very happy and relieved, but also a little sad to say goodbye to the owl. He gave his new friend a very gentle hug and a thank you. He went into his home and, being extremely tired, got ready for bed right away. Before he went to bed, he bent to turn on the nightlight that he had always kept glowing through the night to keep the dark at bay. But before his fingers touched the switch, he smiled and pulled his hand away. He got into his bed, pulled up the covers, and let the comforting arms of the darkness soothe him to sleep. So we go right into the sermon. Okay, great. I'm gonna have to read. I usually have a podium, and I do not do off the top of my head. So, oh, do I like the chalice?
After all.
Yes, you may, Roy. Here you go. Can you do it?
Oh, should we more?
Roy. Our Roy. Right? There we go. Thank you. Good job.
So good morning. So there are few things in life that I find more enchanting than the beauty of a light shining in the darkness. That may be why for me Christmas is one of my favorite times of year. My family and I have a tradition of driving the streets of our neighborhood one night in the week or so before Christmas so we can vote in our neighborhood's contest for the best lighting design. And if there's anyone here who has not been to the Riverwalk in San Antonio around Christmas time, I encourage you to add that to your list of things to do, because even though it can be crowded in places, the lights strewn among the trees and the bridges are truly lovely, and they do extend into the less crowded areas. So every year, for many years also, my family and I attended the Christmas Eve service at First UU San Antonio. And every year the highlight for me was when they turned out all the lights in the sanctuary and everyone lit a candle from their neighbors and we sang Silent Night. The sanctuary full of those lights glowing in the darkness always instilled in me a sense of reverence. Other times of the year also afford opportunities to enjoy the beauty of light shining in darkness. A starry night is lovely anytime, any place. but especially during a new moon, when lack of competing moonlight helps the stars stand out more clearly. And or in a dark sky park, where competing anthropogenic or homemade, human-made light has been kept to a minimum. I'm also partial to the beauty of a simple campfire, preferably but not necessarily with s'mores. For us humans, an appreciation of lights shining in darkness may be more than just aesthetic. Since we are diurnal or day-dwelling creatures, we humans tend to see danger in darkness and safety in light. The common saying, "there's a light at the end of the tunnel," illustrates this. And this point makes me think of one of the prettiest, if not the prettiest song in the musical Rocky Horror Picture Show. In the velvet darkness of the blackest night, burning bright, there's a guiding star, no matter what or who you are. There's a light over at the Frankenstein place. There's a light burning in the fireplace. There's a light in the darkness of everybody's life. The characters who sing that song are interpreting that light as a promise of safety and rescue. And I myself used to be afraid of the dark. I remember being frightened just walking from the den of my house to my bedroom when the lights were out. It's probably a primal instinct. Our ancestors needed to be wary of predators that roamed the night. Whoever tamed fire for use in cooking probably found it a great relief that they could also now use it to see into those dark places where a tiger might be lurking. Even in modern days, lights at night are important for safety, for humans. We have lights on our cars and bicycles, and even light up shoes and armbands for jogging at night or at dusk. We even need light for our health. You may have heard of seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, which mostly affects people in northern climates in the winter. And one of the major treatments for SAD, of course, is light. Now, the love affair between humans and light isn't without its occasional irritations. Have you ever flicked your lights at someone whose high beams are on at night? Light in the wrong quantity or aimed in the wrong direction at the wrong place and time can be pretty irritating. For several years, I volunteered as a summer camp counselor. And I remember the refrain, "Aim your flashlight down." It's like, I know you want to see where I am or where your friend is, but please do not shine your flashlights into people's faces. And if you've ever been to an astronomical viewing where the people are looking through telescopes, you know that a cardinal rule is no white light. A few years ago, I was at a star party and I had to leave early. I was driving a borrowed car and I couldn't figure out how to turn off the lights as I was exiting. And I had to drive towards some astronomers before I could turn off. Oh, the yelling. But you would have thought I was murdering their dog. And they were justifiably irritated. And I just hoped that they did not recognize me. And you don't have to be an astronomer to be affected by an overabundance of nighttime light. If you want to see truly brilliant stars, you have to travel to a dark sky park or other isolated area. I read that in 1994, when an earthquake knocked out the power in Los Angeles, local emergency centers got calls reporting a strange, giant silvery cloud in the dark sky. What they were seeing for the first time was the Milky Way that had been obliterated by the urban sky glow. So if we daytime creatures can be negatively affected by light pollution, imagine the effect on other creatures who are more dependent on the rhythms of alternating darkness and daylight. So here's an example that I find very poignant. Every year on September 11th, there's a special tribute at the 9/11 Memorial. 2 bright beams of blue light are shown from the top of the Memorial Museum garages. They're comprised of 88 7,000-watt xenon light bulbs, and they reach up to 4 miles high. And as a person who appreciates the beauty of a light shining in the darkness, I think that's just wonderful. and are awe-inspiring. But those lights are also deadly. So imagine yourself in this situation. You need to drive from point A to point B, and you have just enough gas to get there, no more, no less. There are no filling stations on the way. If you run out of gas, you're stuck. So you go on your way, and you get into one of those traffic circles. And the traffic is so bad, you're caught going around and around in that traffic. Maybe you're stuck in that circle for 5 minutes. Maybe until you run out of gas. But even if it's just 5 minutes, you might no longer have the ability to get to where you're going. So now imagine yourself as a migrating bird. You have a grueling, hundreds of miles long journey ahead of you, and just enough energy to get there. So you're on your way, and suddenly you see this bright blue light. And due to an innate quality in yourself that human scientists call phototaxis, you must fly into the light. It's an instinct. So you fly into the light, and you're blinded. You have no idea how to get out of that light. You might fly out the other side of it, but you might also fly around and around inside that light until you fall to your death exhausted, or until your energy is so depleted you'll die later on your journey. So this is what happened to tens of thousands of birds when those memorial lights were turned on, until conservationists got involved. Now, volunteers monitor their beams. They lie on their backs and they count the birds, and when the total number of birds that they count in the light reaches 1,000, they turn off the lights for 20 minutes and give the birds an opportunity to fly on. But of course, the once per year 9/11 lights are far from the only hazard of nighttime lighting. Migrating birds are routinely confused during passage by brightly lit buildings, communication towers, and other structures. Glenn Phillips, executive director of the New York City Audubon Society, says that each year in New York City alone, about 10,000 migratory birds are injured or killed crashing into skyscrapers and high-rise buildings. The estimates as to the number of birds dying from collisions across North America annually range from 98 million to close to 1 billion. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service estimates 5 to 50 million birds die each year from collision with communication towers. And birds, of course, are not the only victims of human-made nighttime lighting. As you heard somewhere recently, baby sea turtles follow the glimmer of light from the water to find the sea. When there are other lights in other directions, they can become disoriented and move in the wrong direction, becoming easy prey for night predators or just dying from exhaustion, never reaching their natural home. The remains of dead sea turtles have actually been found in beach campfires that people have failed to extinguish. So a while back, I briefly planned to attend one of those hatchling releases on Padre Island, and I didn't end up going. It's popular, I hate crowds, but I did read some of the information, and I saw that attendees are told to not wear white. If you wear white to a hatchling release, they'll ask you to stand in the back because the light of the white can also attract the sea turtles. And the negative effects of light pollution for sea turtles can start well before the hatching of the babies. Mama sea turtles can also be led astray by lights, wandering into highways and getting hit by cars, or just deciding the beach is too brightly lit to lay eggs. And it's not just birds and sea turtles. Frogs like to call their mates in darkness. And in the presence of too much light at night, sometimes they decide to stay single, which is not a good thing for frog populations. And just like Mr. Bat in my book, real bats love the dark. They feed at night using echolocation to spot their prey. Light disorients them and affects their ability to feed. So if you had asked me before I did my research on this topic to guess what percentage of species are nocturnal, I would have guessed about 20%. And I would have been right about primates. But apparently almost all small rodents and carnivores and 80% of marsupials are nocturnal. And there seems to be less information about light pollution on plants, but it does seem that artificial light can prevent many trees from adjusting to natural seasonal cycles. And that can affect the animals that rely on them for shelter. And let's go back to humans for a second. Yes, humans are diurnal, meaning we're active in the daytime. And I've mentioned the negative effects when we don't get enough daylight, but we also need our periods of darkness. Studies have linked an absence of darkness at night, as with nurses who are on a night shift in a bloody hospital, with lower melatonin levels, which in turn are linked to breast and prostate cancer. So in a recent article in The Atlantic, writer Ed Yong talked about both light and noise pollution, and he introduced a word that I've been unfamiliar with, Umwelt, defined as the world as it is experienced by a particular organism. It's probably not news to anyone that different species experience the world in different ways. Remember the horror movie The Fly? When the camera shows the victim from the fly's perspective, there's always lots of little screaming faces, one for every one of the fly's eyes. And when you are arguing a friend, we're likely recognize the friend by appearance. When a dog meets a friend, they recognize their friend by smell. So imagine how your world would be different if you lost the ability to see most colors, but your smell was enhanced by 40 times. You would have a taste of the Umwelt of a dog. And my third example of an Umwelt is really speculation. We humans, who are biological day creatures, set our horror stories on dark and stormy nights. I imagine that if a super intelligent owl or bat were to compose a horror story, they would set theirs on a bright and sunny day. So the idea that different species experience the world in different ways was not new to me. But what was sort of new was the idea that sharing this planet, or we might say affirming the interconnected web of existence of which we are all a part, requires a greater appreciation of those differences than the human species has shown so far. I'm sure that the people involved in the design and installation of the tribute light had no idea of the effect that it would have on migrating birds. And why should they? I doubt anybody asked them to think about their project from the perspective of the birds. Young describes sensory pollution as the pollution of disconnection. He says it detaches us from our cosmos. This would be the opposite of affirming the interdependent web. And there's some good news. Light pollution is one of the easiest kinds of pollution to combat. There's lots of simple, inexpensive things each of us personally can do. We can replace white lights with soft white lights and use shaded fixtures and direct the light where it's needed. We can even save money while reducing light pollution just by turning off unnecessary lights. And if you want to be more of an activist, you can ask local businesses to use night sky friendly lighting. The idea of Umwelten in the natural world makes me think about UU values of justice and inclusion among humans. We encourage people of different identities, of dominant identities, to try to see things more from the perspective of people with marginalized identities. This involves an openness to being educated and a willingness to change entrenched patterns of thought. I believe that Ed Yong is encouraging us to do in his Atlantic article the same thing as regards the natural world. He points out that humans are the only creatures who are able to recognize the Umwelt of their own species and to observe and speculate about the Umwelten of other species. This is a gift and a challenge. He also says that to perceive the world through other senses is to find splendor and familiarity and sacred in the infinite, sacred in the mundane. If I knew how to embroider, I would love to put that on a pillow. I believe that finding splendor in the familiar and sanctity of the mundane is a theological imperative for UUs. Most UUs don't dream of a heaven in the next world. We believe in celebrating and conserving and improving the world as it is. Let us add preserving dark skies to our list of imperatives. Blessed be. Amen.
I did not notice that this room is half dark and half light. But there are other ways that we can preserve. Now an offering be taken to sustain and strengthen this place which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. This church shares the proceeds of the offering plate donation every week to support important nonprofit organizations with which we work. And this year we are not doing it quarterly, we're just splitting the plate every Sunday, and then at the end of the year, we'll write 4 equal checks for 4 of our nonprofits. And so, goes up service, and I know that Pride Community Center is one of them. Brazos African American Museum is another, and I can't remember the other 2, but they're ones that we're familiar with. Oh, and the food pantry. Ben was our last quarter, but I don't know that that's one of the 4 for the year. Sorry?
Blessings.
Oh, yeah, Brazos Valley Blessings. So we did a vote at the congregation meeting in May, so think about who you would like to recommend for the next year, and we'll do an informal vote. We give thanks for these gifts, and for those who have given them, and for each other. May your blessings return to you tenfold. Now join me in extinguishing the chalice.
We're singing to go home.
Are we singing?
Oh, no, yes, singing, music guy, Phillabaum.
Gotta do at least one here.
I know, we usually do 3 or 4, but we're trying on here. I don't know if that was my job or somebody else's, but anyway, we're gonna do Phillabaum, which is what?
1064. 1064.
And it's out of place.
And I think I would like to have some songstresses. I bet you can be very hard. Or you just want to sing.
Hello.
They're gonna sing.
I feel no motions, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry young heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known, the wide universe Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I glide the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions. All we can drift pilgrim songs, making our way by the lights of the heavens in a beautiful blue. Oh, oh. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, and the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue home.
Thanks for the help.
Yes, thank you all. Now we rejoin those. Yes. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, or the warmth of unity, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we gather together again. And that the light of Unitarian Universalism live with you as you live by values throughout the week. Evangelize. Thank you. Join us for coffee, and some of us are taking our guests out for lunch. If anybody wants to join us, just see me during the coffee hour. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. So, all right, thank you.
Just remember that you're standing on land that's evolving with all of the at 40 miles an hour. It's orbiting at 19 miles per second, so it's like the sun that is the source of all our power. The sun and you and me and all the stars we can see are moving at 1,000,000 miles a day. In the Arctic spot along at 40,000 miles per second of the galaxy we call the Milky Way. Our galaxy itself contains 100 billion stars, 100,000 light years side to side. It bulges in the middle, 16,000 light years thick, but out by us is just 3,000 light years wide. We're 30,000 light years from the galactic central point, go round every 200 million years. And our galaxy is only one of millions and millions in this amazing and expanding universe. Our universe itself keeps on expanding and expanding in all the directions it can do. As fast as it can go, the speed of light goes 12 million miles a minute. That's the fastest speed there is. So remember, if you're feeling small and scared, how amazingly unlikely is your birth. And pray that there's intelligent life somewhere up in space, because it's harder